All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to our behind the scenes here at that network, Las Vegas Broadcasting Company. My name is David Hare, and we're doing something brand new at the network. We're giving YouTube a little bit of attention, which we haven't done a whole lot of. Now, we have used YouTube to post and to, help our clients have an access to be able to their videos and that sort of thing, kind of a utility for us. But we decided that a lot of people, we get questions all the time. People call us up and are, how do you do this? And how do you, I don't know what that means. Somebody just came in and gave me some.
It's actually improved.
Well, what was this?
The buffered in the key.
Okay. But we get people calling us and asking. So we thought, you know what? An easy way to do this is to just kind of go through maybe a behind the scenes, which we like sharing the journey of the network. And Las Vegas Broadcasting Company, which you're seeing there, is the only 24/7 television network for, from, and about Las Vegas. You're watching behind the scenes at the network. Everything's kind of camped out right now because we're doing some remodeling here, getting ready to bust this wall out, building a big set and light grid in our studio. So it's an exciting time around here. Of course, we're working pretty hard. I won't complain. I'm not complaining. I'm just explaining. Tonight, we've got a great behind the scenes for you. I don't just come on and babble. I want to give you something that I hope will help. And that's not to say that we're imparting any divine wisdom here, but I listen to all kinds of stuff. I mean, I take in, motivational speakers, businessmen who've succeeded, young guys who are rocking and doing their thing, to little struggling enterprises that share their journey and what they're going through. So that's what we hope to do, is just kind of not be a struggling enterprise, but to share our view and what we're going through, that maybe it helps some of you out. Tonight we decided on a topic: surviving challenges to your enterprise. Now, I think when you think of challenges, that is a universal theme. It is a universal topic. It's something that we go through in our personal lives, in our relationships, and it is especially true of any business enterprise. It has been said that when it comes to money, you have two worries no matter what. You either, one, are worrying about how to get money, or number two, if you have it, how to keep it. And that really is the truth. The guy who wrote much of the New Testament was named Paul, and he said, I've learned to live with much, and I've learned to live with little. And I can relate to that. That's kind of my life. I've had lots and lots and lots, and I've had some really scary days in my life. And both of those statements I shared with you are true. That you are either worrying about how to get money, or once you have it, you worry about how to keep it. And why is that? When you have money, you worry about how to keep it, because now some people, like maybe a Donald Trump, would say, oh no, I never worry about how to keep it because maybe he wouldn't. I think he actually would say that's true, because, he lost a lot at one time. And I ain't promoting politics right now, so don't get into that, okay? We're just chit-chatting. But you're either worrying about how to get money, or you're worrying how to keep it. And why is that? Because of challenges. Once you get money and resources and assets, people can be vicious. And we're going to talk a little bit about that tonight. Before we get into our topic, which is surviving challenges to your enterprise, I think you're going to find it interesting. Let me just tell you, Las Vegas Broadcasting Company is in 12% right now of all smart TVs and OTT devices worldwide. That's a hell of a lot of television screens watching our network. And why would people watch us? Well, we're the only television network for, from, and about Las Vegas. We're not a local TV station, nor are we a hospitality or travel channel that's just cycling 3 videos all day long. We do original programming. We take you to programs that hotels have produced, like MGM Resorts, M Life, whatever the case may be. And we're continually upping the game with new programming. As I told you, we're completely remodeling and rebuilding and redesigning our studio and our sets. And it's pretty exciting around here. So we are in a city that is the #1 destination in the world. And ironically, we'll get to our topic, but I just wanted you to know who we are. Ironically, we are a city of only 2 million people, but 40 million people come here every year. And when those people and the people who don't come but are thinking about coming or have Las Vegas on their mind, is what I like to say, you're probably talking worldwide about 200 to 300 million people who at some point within a 6 to 12 month period think about Las Vegas. Well, that's a huge pool of people. And we are the go-to place. You can't think of Las Vegas and walk through a teleporter and be in Las Vegas. You got to book a flight, you got to pack your bags, you got to get a hotel room and get here. But you can think about Las Vegas and turn on a TV set and find Las Vegas Broadcasting. We're #1 in search on smart TVs, on Roku. We are adding Apple TV and Amazon Fire, TiVo. And our roster of smart TVs just continues to rise. We just added Hitachis, which is pretty exciting. So great things happening at Las Vegas Broadcasting Company. And we are also in some talks right now for traditional broadcast television. We got called. And that's the truth. So we'll share a little more of that with you on another program. Tonight we're going to talk about, on behind the scenes here, you'll see the network behind me as I'm talking. By the way, we need you to subscribe to YouTube. We have not had a heavy YouTube campaign. We just had a channel that we used for utility purposes, but now we are thinking that maybe we will kind of get active with a YouTube campaign. We're actually going to hire a YouTube girl who's just going to babysit that and our Facebook stuff and basically social media. But you could help us out by subscribing, and we'd appreciate it. So with that said, let's get into tonight's topic. I hope it helps, and I really think it will. Trials and adversities when you are doing any sort of enterprise are going to happen. And one of the things I do is share my journey and the company's journey to tell you how I got from being an 8-year-old kid who wanted to start a business at 8, and I did. It was originally called David Hare Enterprises, and I started by doing birthday party entertainment and made $25 for my first show, and ended up making raising that to $50 and stayed pretty steady. I during the summer times, basically spring through back to school, was working almost every weekend, and then throughout the year, so I probably did in a year, maybe 30, 40 birthday parties in a year. There were some weekends where I did multiple birthday parties. And that's how I started as a kid. And now I'm sitting in Las Vegas, Nevada, a dream come true. I've lived here before. We built this network in 2012 and then started the move to Las Vegas. Started doing shows out here in 2014 and incorporated in Nevada in 2015. And now we're almost concluding 2016, and we are just loving Las Vegas. Having said that, I want to talk to you about challenges, and I most of the time like to tell you positive things because I think positive things inspire us and maybe spark something and say, well, if that son of a bitch can do it, then I certainly can. And especially you guys watching on YouTube, you're like, oh, who's this? What's he doing? Which is cool. I'm good with that. So, I hope that when you tune into these behind the scenes, which will have a topic every program, you leave with something that challenges you. And that's even if you look at what I'm doing and say, oh, that's just, maybe you're a cocky young guy and you're like, oh, brother, good. That'll motivate you. It'll motivate you to say, that guy, I could do better than him. Good. That's a good motivation. If you're, a girl sitting there watching me and you're like, say, maybe 33 to 43, and you're like, I wonder if that guy's married. No, I'm not. And my email's on the screen and you can call me. That's not where I was going. But anyway, all right. So I want to share something. We all have mentors in our life. And I grew up in Disneyland land, Orange County, California. Again, tonight's topic, surviving challenges to your enterprise. And the person that I decided to study, not be a fan of, was Walt Disney. And there is a difference. Disney fans are crazy lunatic people. I mean, they run around with like Mickey Mouse balls on their antenna on their cars, and they've always got the new Minnie Mouse shirt and a Disneyland bumper sticker and little pins of Disney, and that's just not me, and it never has been me. I am a student of this human being, this man called Walt Disney, because he was a human being, a person. And when you get the Disney Corporation out of your mind and you really allow yourself, when I read a book, I've got a vivid imagination, and I read books and love it, I think, more than movies, because my mind gets to fill in the gap. Well, I allow myself to read these stories and biographies and books about the life of Walt Disney, and I'm transported in time and really understand or try to grasp the challenges that he faced. And now he's an American institution. But listen to what he said about challenges. Walt Disney said, "All the adversity I've had in my life, all my troubles and obstacles, have strengthened me. You may not realize it when it happens, but a kick in the teeth may be the best thing in the world for you." Now I'm going to read that one more time. Walt Disney said, "All the adversity I've had in my life, all the troubles and obstacles have strengthened me. You may not realize it when it happens or when you're going through it, but a kick in the teeth may be the best thing in the world for you." And I never wanted to hear that when I was younger. If I came across a quote like that from Walt Disney, I'd be like, well, yeah, okay, but that's not really what he was zippity doodah. Happy Days Are Here Again, which wasn't his song, but that's basically Disney. And sometimes when you watch, Tinkerbell flying across the castle and When You Wish Upon a Star and, a 40-piece orchestra or larger playing those wonderful tunes, you don't realize that those dreams come to life through this kind of thinking. All adversity in my life, all troubles and obstacles strengthen me. You may not realize it when it happens, but a kick in the teeth may be the best thing for you. So that is our opening verse for tonight's non-religious show. But it is surviving challenges in your business, whether it's a YouTube page, whether it's an online website where you're selling products that you're merchandising, whether it's a creative endeavor and you've got some sort of Indiegogo or Kickstarter campaign, you're going to face challenges, and people don't like to hear it. Which brings me to the first point in tonight's topic. Challenges and trials are going to come. Period. Now, why do I say that? Because some of you that even know that don't want to live in that space, and I get that. And you may want to flick off the stream tonight or the video if you're watching it on the the broadcast afterwards, or the upload of the video of the broadcast. You may just say, I don't want to hear this. But let me tell you something. What I'm going to say tonight is the hardest stuff that I have to talk about. It's stuff I'd rather not talk about, but I promise you when we conclude tonight, which will be about an hour from now, we are going to conclude with you being so motivated and inspired and walking away with solid ground. What do I mean? Something that will absolutely change your life for the better. And I believe it, because these are not my principles. I am not Anthony Robbins. I am not some self-help guru. I'm just a guy who's lived life. And you go to Google because Google has filtered billions of pieces of data. And you trust Google you don't trust Google, you trust algorithms to give you a filter down so you can get there quicker, right? You type in auto detailer in my community, and the page fills up with 10, 15, 20 recommendations on page 1. Well, imagine if you just typed that into some screen and everyone that was available just kept, zip, zip, zip. It'd be overload. So when we listen to other people, it's not about how famous they are. It's not about how many high-rise buildings they've built. We as a community connect with one another because you have filtered some information. I have filtered some information. And we pick up pieces from one another. So let's be clear tonight that we are not coming here at Las Vegas Broadcasting Company from a position of getting up over you or trying to sound better than you or that we know more than you. We are just one tiny filter of data, and we want to share that filter knowledge with you, and maybe you have some knowledge that you will take, or you'll take a piece of it tonight and impart it. So number 1, trials and tribulations, challenges to your enterprise are going to come. That's filtered piece of information number 1. You can spend a lot of time resisting it. You can spend a lot of time saying, I'm a positive guy, I want to stay positive. And I'm telling you, this discussion tonight is probably the most positive. This is like, what are those, there's an ice cream, I think it's Ben & Jerry's. Ben & Jerry's, I think, one of them has an ice cream flavor called Everything But the Kitchen Sink. And it looks like a big pile of shit. A big old pile of doo-doo in a ice cream container. And they have cakes like this, these crazy recipes of muddy mess pile shit cake, You eat the stuff, it's like, oh my God, that's delicious. That's tonight's show. Tonight's show sounds negative, but it's good and tasty. Okay, so let's talk about the fact that challenges are going to come. When I was a kid, I set out to do, and let's go back and pretend we're in a Steven Spielberg movie from the 80s, right? Some sort of Goonies movie or something. What is our perception of life? And childhood is very important. What happens in our childhood will stay with us the rest of our life. It will suddenly, there's a period there in your teens and early 20s that you're constantly wrestling with your childhood, even if you don't consciously think about it. It's constantly coming up. Something, my dad this, my mom that, my brothers and sisters. And as you get older, it finally gets into a nice little tidy package, and it's still there. It will stay with you, but part of maturing is being able to put childhood into its proper place, draw upon the lessons of it, let the hurts and the disappointments go, and move forward as a grown-up. That's part of dealing with your childhood. But let's be clear, it always is with us. So let me take you back a little bit. I told you I started, doing birthday party entertainment. Basically, my life was great. Why? Well, I don't know anything about mortgages. I don't know a damn thing about electric bills. Now, the bill I knew about was the phone bill, because you guys don't realize when I was growing up, if you called 2 cities over, that was called a toll call. And if you called, out of county, that was where long distance would begin. And these phone bills could get crazy, not these $100 a month for unlimited calls nationwide. We didn't know of anything like that. So my mom was always telling me, we moved from one community in Huntington Beach to Irvine, and my mom would constantly, I'd be on the phone talking to my friend, and my mom came in constantly saying, okay, you've been on the phone for 3 minutes, you need to get off the phone now. Why, Mom? Because the phone bill. The phone bill's this is a long distance call. Drove me nuts. Now, you guys can't imagine how bad it was. I mean, everything was a charge on the phone. I mean, there's charge for this and a charge for that. And it's kind of how they act now with data, You guys want to be able to stream content, and they're like, well, we'll give you, 4 gigs, 8 gigs, but, anything above that. That's exactly how it used to be with basic telephone calls. All right, so other than the phone, I had no idea about bills. And so I got to create. I got to give it my best shot. And I took full advantage of something I didn't know I was taking advantage of. I took full advantage of being a kid and not having many worries, and being able to just create. And so I, as a consequence of no real responsibility, in terms of paying for a household. I mean, no kid should have that kind of pressure. And I didn't. I learned responsibility by making my $25 and then $50 at shows, and learning how to budget. Well, I want this many new props. I want to put this much in the bank, and I'd like to be able to go see a movie. So, yeah, I learned, but I didn't have the pressure. We're talking about challenges tonight. And consequently, I kept excelling very fast. I was in honor bands. I was in junior high school playing with the high school bands. You know, I was exceeding and excelling in almost everything that I did except sports. I walked on to sign up. Yeah, I want to be on the football team. My brothers and sister played football in the neighborhood, and I was never. But for some reason, I still don't know why, I went up and signed up with, for football. Crazy. And I was at one practice and I said, I'm done with this. So I didn't excel at sports, but I excelled creatively. And opportunities kept growing. I grew the little birthday party entertainer, bought a DJ system in my early teens, and started going from $25 to $50 to $500 a night. And that was serious stuff back in those days. And then I was buying real equipment. I mean, speakers and microphones, and we had amplifiers and whatever the hell else. I mean, it was a crazy time. Still, no foundational responsibilities like mortgages and utility bills, etc. So life was good. And then I started producing shows. I rented, with the money I was making from DJing that was adding up rather quickly, I started renting the school auditorium during the summer, and I'd put on stage shows. And I'd get kids together, and I'd rent fancy props, and I'd put on stage shows. And all these experiences kept begetting more experiences and more opportunities until I got a really cool opportunity. Now I'm going to pause. Tonight we're talking about challenges, and I'm showing you how what happens in our childhood. Now, some of you may have struggled in your childhood, and I love those stories, because you people that struggled hard in childhood, if you get over it and say, I'm not going the way everyone else, you tend to be some of the highest producers around. I said if you get over it. Some people who get everything and have basically, they kind of expect that's how life should be, and they don't deal with challenges well, which is my story. I'll explain how I was not prepared for challenges. But some of you that had bad childhoods, and some of you that, started feeling the pressure of, why don't I have Cookie Crisp cereal and my friends do? And, why are my shoes popping through with maybe not holes? I don't want to paint some corny over-the-top picture, but we all have challenges. But in childhood, a lot of us we kind of skated for many years. And some of you that go through real challenges in childhood tend to be great producers, because you learn early on how to deal with adversity. That's not my story. I didn't know how to deal with adversity. Now, I'm here as the executive producer of Las Vegas Broadcasting, which is broadcasting right behind us. We're on a commercial break on the network right now. But I'm just sharing with you, I couldn't be here today if I didn't learn how to deal with challenges and adversity. And it's an important topic, a sad topic, because you wish that life was easier, and it isn't. But it is a lot of fun. Life is rewarding. And let me share something very personal. My family was very secular, very just normal Southern California. But as many families at that time, we had distant ties to religion. A great-grandmother who was you would call her a church lady. My grandparents in Texas, who were also very secular, but were tied in kind of in a community way to the Methodist Church. And my family I didn't know what my parents did before I was born. They were my parents. And they had their wild past, I suppose you could say. And one day they decided to go to this big church that had bought a theater across the street from Disneyland. Big church. I mean, there were like 15,000 people in the 70s and 80s going there a week. Massive. And it was kind of like the Joel Osteen church of its day. If you've seen Joel, he's like one of the popular guys, his books in Walmart and all that. But we were still very secular. My family, how did religion take hold in our life? We prayed, thanked Jesus for our food. My mom would utter a inspirational quote every so often. And when my dad got angry, he would still say, "Son of a bitch!" So, the church impacted us, but we were still pretty normal, if that's normal. I mean, God, son of a bitch. My dad was like a freaking cartoon character, David, get the hell, you're supposed to be handing me the screwdriver. He'd be working in the garage, up under some sink that he's installing, and I'm supposed to sit there. I'm like 10 years old, and I'm ready to run outside in the summer and play, and I'm supposed to just sit there for an hour and a half holding a screwdriver until he's damn well good and ready for it. But that's life. And my family was just, a typical family you would hear about, middle class, but religion was a part of it, is the point. It wasn't all of it, but it was a part of it. So we did get involved in this church. Sure, we liked the great hymns and, hearing that Jesus is a nice guy who loves you no matter what. And I'm not saying none of that affected us. Of course it did. But really, we loved being a part of something. We loved having a place to connect and friends that were more than just some version of a Facebook friend. And I've got real Facebook friends who are really friends who I'm connected with on Facebook. But you know what I mean, where it's just, we went to the river this week and did this and that, and everybody's going, "Oh, great, I hope you guys had this," and it's so superficial. And at church, we felt like, people were like, "Hey, how you doing? Are you guys," and it felt real, okay? And that was a good thing. So the community part of it was a positive. And then what this church was crazy. It was big shows and TV cameras and Christian TV networks and Jim and Tammy Baker. I mean, it was crazy when I was growing up. So I started getting involved in the musical department. And these were big, big shows that this church did. We were across the street from Disneyland. And 3 times a year, they put on these huge productions, and I wanted to be a part. I didn't care if I was on stage acting. I didn't care if I was running a follow spot or running around with, Lico and Parcan lights, handing them up to guys twice my age, hanging them in the rafters. I just wanted to be there, and I was. And the superstar musical producer had left, and he was moving on in his career. And it was a big blow to the church at a very critical time. We're talking about challenges. And this guy went on in his career and left a gaping hole in the church. And I had worked with him, and I didn't consider myself half the talent of him musically. He's an incredible musician. But I thought I understood the production side of it and just enough of the music that I could pull something off. So I went to the pastor of this huge church, and I said, "I'd like a Sunday night and $5,000. And he said, "For what?" I said, "I'll fill up the church with a little mini musical, and I'm going to do it really cheap." And he started laughing at me in a kind way, but laughing. I think he thought it was cute. I was 16, just barely 16. And he says, no, I was 16. I was getting ready to turn 17 that following April. And he says to me, "David, do you know how much we spend on musicals here?" It was like $40,000 to $100,000 in the 80s, early 80s. Crazy. A lot of money back then, especially for a church. And I said, "I don't care. I've already figured it out. $5,000 in a Sunday night, and I'll fill the place up." Well, he took my challenge, and he literally picked up the phone, called the accountant or the bookkeeper, and said, David has a budget of $5,000. Let him do this, and et cetera, et cetera. So I packed it out. And that began kind of the beginning of my professional producing career. That was my first big break. Again, everything in my life up to this point, and even a few shows after, had gone famously, beautiful, no challenges. So the first thing, and why I'm spending a little bit of time on this topic, is because if you don't fully grasp challenges and how real they are without being scared, because fear will paralyze you. It's almost like a scab, right? You get, or callus. A better analogy is a callus. You play the guitar, and it hurts at first. Have you ever tried to pick up a guitar if you've never played it? Well, sit there for an hour, just learn one chord, or two or three, and sit there for an hour playing. Your fingers are going to hurt. I kid you, they're going to hurt. It's like you're sawing steel frickin' wire into your flesh and blood, and it hurts. It's like sadomasochism. But over time, you develop calluses on the tips of your finger. And those calluses now work as tools to help you get those chords quick. And suddenly, it's depending on the kind of girl, if you've got some little delicate, sweet baby, she's going to say, I don't like those calluses. Or another girl's going to say, baby, put those calluses all over me. It just depends. But the point is, calluses are work to you, and that's what a challenge is. Challenges are gonna hurt like a son of a bitch. They are going to be painful if you've never dealt with them. Now, you don't want to become seared in your spirit where you're like a callous negative person, but you can use the callousness of, and I don't mean that in the sense of, oh, he's a callous person, but you have to become callous to challenges. Callous doesn't mean you don't deal with it. It doesn't mean that you're oblivious to it. It means that you're hardened and strengthened. Just like a guitar player. Guitar players aren't unsensitive because their fingertips are callous. They just have a part of them that is callous so that they can facilitate the music they're trying to bring to you. And that's what you have to do with challenges in business, is become calloused. You have to get those calluses built around challenges so that you're not less of a feeling person, a cold or shameless person, but somebody who can deal properly with those hard, cutting, searing challenges in your life. So that happened for me. I decided with all this success I was having, I was going to rent the Anaheim Convention Center across the street from Disneyland. Now, I actually had a company. I changed the name. I told you it was David Hare Enterprises to David Hare Productions. And so I went over and just started talking to some friends about this show I wanted to put on. And people got very excited. Of course, I had proven what I could do. So, and I wasn't, I knew nothing about money in terms of being somebody savvy enough to raise investor seed capital or whatever. That was just, I didn't even know what that term was. All I knew is I'd tell people, yeah, I want to, just like I did when I was a kid. I was only 16, and I would say, when I was a kid at 8, 9, 10, 11 years old, I'd say, I'm going to put on a show, and people would show up. Well, I did the same thing at 16, except this time it was the Anaheim Convention Center. And, now I'm going from a church that's paying the bills for my show to my company going from producing little shows to producing a big show, and that wasn't even the challenge. I was not prepared for the challenge of the challenge. And that was what almost killed me, literally, at 16. Why? Well, there was some political stuff going on in this church that I grew up at. And one day the pastor, after I had already packed out the church a number of times with musicals and events I produced, he knew that in a few months, my event was happening around the corner, across the street, right there at the Anaheim Convention Center. And he called me in and said, I want you to move that event from the convention center here to the church. The church wasn't like a little steeple church. It was a theater. So it wasn't a bad suggestion. I wasn't opposed to it because I could put on 3 concerts at the church and fill up the same amount of people or more than 1 concert at the Anaheim Convention Center. And everybody knew this theater facility that the church was at called Melodyland. So it wasn't a bad suggestion. I'm not harping on him about that. The issue was that since I had planned this event, some of the people who backed me, people much older than me, millionaires, I could name them right now. So a dear lady who would write checks for any bill for that thing that I would just say, she'd walk up to me and say, now, did you pay the radio station? I'd say, yes. Did you pay this? No, well, hold on. Tell me who and she'd write the check out. She was a millionaire. And the pastor said, I need you to move that concert from the convention center to the church. And I had one problem, a legitimate problem, not with moving it over there. In fact, I was honored. I thought it was neat that he wanted to let me do my own production at the church where I was kind of like the kid who grew up and got a few lucky breaks. So it was an honor to me. But I told him the truth. And I said, well, I have a problem. And he didn't like hearing that. He was not a person that you told no to. You either did it his way, it was his way or the highway. And he had a shrewd side to him, and I don't mind telling you that. A shrewd, coarse directness that could cut through your spirit privately. Very rarely showed it publicly, but privately he could be fierce. And he says to me, what's the problem? I said, well, some of the people who have given money for this concert have left your church, or our church. I was still going there. And I don't want to upset them. And I didn't understand politics. I knew nothing about any of that crap. And I'm 16 years old. 16. What do you know at 16? You know? I'm serious. Well, he gets up and walks out and said, that's it. And the next day, I get a call saying, get my stuff, get it out of the church. Period. You see, older people are going to filter your responses to them. Young people, I'm going to tell you this because I still can remember being 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. And I try to retain that so that I give understanding to young people the way when I was a young person, I wanted understanding. But I will tell some of you young guys, here's the deal. Older people, if they give you grown-up responsibilities, some of them are going to not give you the grace that you deserve. It's not that, oh, he's young, give him extra credits of grace. It's just that if you have common sense, especially if you're an old person, you would say, well, I can't treat this kid this way because he doesn't know what these 30-year-old guys know or what the 40-year-old guys know. But that's how I was being judged. Because if you're smart enough to do a thing and smart enough to get people there, then you should be smart enough to know what I'm saying in this political, abstract sort of subtext. Well, I wasn't. I was compute. And so I was shocked. Well, that wasn't the worst of it, being told to get all my stuff out of the church. The worst of it was that I got a call from the Anaheim Convention Center who got a letter from my church citing California law and saying David Hare is a minor, which was true. And you entered into a contract with a minor. Now, this guy who I knew well at the convention center, met with him many, many times, been in his office at the convention center many, many times. I ran around the convention center, not as much as I did Melodyland, my church, but enough that I could walk around and people knew me. And long story short, too late, right? But here's what happened. He's reading off all these legalities that the church was citing, and all I heard was sabotage. That's all I heard. I didn't know what the heck he was talking about. I was being sabotaged. Now, I told you how idealistic my childhood was or seemed to me. Maybe my brothers and sisters would say, what the hell are you talking about? It was very hard. But for me, I was happy. I mean, sure, there were things I didn't like, you know. Like my dad had this really bad habit of, we'd sit alone in the car and he'd roll up all the windows and, he'd let out some really obnoxious gas. No, I'm kidding. No, he's pretty hygienic and pretty, meticulous in that regard. That's why I joked about it, just as absurd. Anyway, I was not prepared for this level of viciousness. And this is what I want you to get. I had been knocking home runs out of the park. There were a few balls, but basically knocking them out of the park. And this level of viciousness and way of undermining my innocent best will endeavors was absolutely something I did not understand. And I won't go into the story post that letter, but I will tell you it caused legal trouble, not for me. The convention center basically said they're right, and Melody Lamb was making all kinds of claims that if they did this, that was wrong, and they were going to cause a stink, basically. And so that event got canceled. The short reason is because I was a minor, and but it was a little more complicated, but I'm not going to go into that now. But that's the short answer. It was based on this letter, effectively stopped the entire event that was just excelling. Tickets were selling. And I didn't get the money from the tickets. That was being handled by one of the ticket agencies, and then they don't pay you until the event's over with. But the whole thing came to a screeching halt in the matter of about 10 days from the point of that letter. Now, being a kid that had nothing but positives in my life, the night of the show, the night the show would have happened, which was June 6th, if I believe, of that year, I literally melted down. My brain seized up. I was a kid. I was 16. At that time, I just turned 17. April had passed. It was June. And my brain just seized. I could not. The betrayal, it felt like Hitler to me. I know that sounds extreme, but I was a kid who, and this was my pastor. This was my childhood pastor, who I looked up to my whole life, writing a vicious letter to the Anaheim Convention Center because I wouldn't move my event from the convention center to his church. And it seared me. And I'm giving you this example to tell you I couldn't deal with challenges. It was completely foreign to me. And my parents said I was unconscious for 3 days, that I didn't eat, I didn't drink, I did nothing for 3 days but lay catatonic. Not sleeping soundly and peacefully, catatonic. When I woke up, I was drenched in sweat and felt like I had a fever. I just literally, I don't know if I collapsed, I just shut down for 3 days. My brain just I kept trying to figure out the sense of it all, My brain was just firing on all cylinders trying to figure it out. And I tell you this dramatic story because some of you are not prepared for challenges. Not all of you, some of you are. And I'm going to talk to those of you that are prepared about how to deal with them effectively. But before we got there, it's not fair to move right into how to deal with challenges when people don't understand. Some of the audience does not understand how deep challenges can hit our being. And I wanted to bring that home first before we quickly move on to other points. But that's it for me. I was happy as a kid. 16 years old, rent the convention center, have the success and track record and reputation to validate what I was trying to do. And got caught up in politics of 50-year-old men, way more savvy than me, that pounced on me like a Godzilla. And it was something I didn't understand. Had no way to comprehend it. No way to filter it. So unless you accept that challenges happen, I tell you that because it can knock you out physically. I mean, if you think your marriage is going so great, and you come home every day and, sure, she yells at me and says, you're a no good son of a bitch and I want you out, but that's just how she is. And that's how some of you live. Not all of you, but some of you live that way. It's staring you right in the face. People tell you over and over again, son of a bitch, you keep doing this and you're going to be out. And some of you are just like, whoo, oblivious. So what am I telling you? Well, I'm telling you that if you are not prepared for challenges in your spirit, in your psyche, in your core being, that when they blindside you, it can be the setback of all setbacks. And why do you think people commit suicide? Well, some are just depressed. Do you know here in Las Vegas, we're Las Vegas Broadcasting Company, that's Las Vegas Broadcasting Company, the TV network, broadcasting behind us, but here where we are in Las Vegas is the suicide capital of the United States. More people commit suicide in Las Vegas than anywhere else in the nation. And you know why? Well, I'm sure there's a group of them that are depressed, but some people suddenly, there are people who have come to this town. These are real stories. And gambling's not so much a big thing as it was before. People still love to do it, but it's not the number one draw to Vegas. It enhances it. If it went away, Vegas would not be what it is. But it's not the neon gambling capital that it once was. It's Vegas now, and Vegas includes gambling. But people have come here and had a minor problem, maybe a $50,000 issue, that a lawsuit they got to contend with. And they start doing the math and they figure, I don't have 50 grand to deal with. I only got like 10, 20 grand in the bank. And so they'll come out here and mortgage their whole house. They'll take that 10, 20 grand thinking they're going to turn it into the 50 they need, and they don't, but they hit it really good. They were at 30. They're at $30,000. And then there was an awkward bad turn, and they lose the 30 now. And some of these crazy people have mortgaged their home and literally ended up with nothing. Like a 30-day notice saying, get your shit out, and you're like in a U-Haul truck. And some people can't take it, and just bam, it's over. And there are people who say, I'm going to Vegas, and if I win, I win, and if I don't, I'm done. Now, I don't want to be a naysayer because we love the city, but that happens. Why? Because those are people that don't know how to practically deal with challenges. They see one thing. And this is my problem with religion. Everything's a spiritual battle. And I know people who spend their entire life trying to figure out if the devil's doing it or if God's doing it. One night, I had worked in Christian TV before I left that world. Have nothing to do with it now. One night, just kind of flipping channels, I see this one TV preacher, Joel Osteen, I told you about earlier. He's one of the biggest preachers on TV. He's been on Jimmy Fallon. And Joel happens to be saying, as I'm flicking by, I sit there for maybe 5 minutes, and he says, some of you have had doors closed in your face. And you just need to know God's not doing that to you. God is not closing the doors to your future. So stick with it. Don't give up. Keep walking through those doors. Keep knocking. Don't quit. And I was like, okay, I've heard this message 1,000 times. I clicked over a couple channels, and on another channel is a lady named Joyce Myers. Not as big as Joel, but pretty popular. With the ladies love her. And Joyce is talking about the same subject, doors. On the same night, literally from the time I click from one channel to the other, and she is saying, when you come to a closed door, some of you keep knocking on it, and you keep asking God, why is this door closed? And God's trying to tell you, I closed that door. So Joel's telling people, if a door's closed, just keep knocking. Don't quit. And Joyce is saying, some of you don't know how to recognize a closed door. God's telling you this isn't the right way. Same God, two different messengers that are prophets of God speaking from the throne room of heaven. And that's one of my issues with Christianity and religion, is that people live in that space, in that place of constantly trying to figure out. When my life got better, when I got all the crap out of my brain, I'm not perfect, I go through things too, but do I spend enormous amounts of time trying to figure out if God's for me or against me? I do not. I live in peace. And some of you say, I have peace, I have Jesus Christ. Great. I'm not here to take Jesus from you. Everybody relax. I'm not the Antichrist. I'm not trying to get you to take the mark of David and reject Jesus. I'm just simply saying, when I got that stuff out of my brain, then I could deal with real life instead of pretend land, instead of make-believe, instead of kooky craziness. So that's step number one, is learning to deal with it. Which brings me right into my next point, deciding what you believe. Now, what do I mean by that? Once you know challenges come, and when they do come, you accept that you have to deal with them, you have to have a game plan. And a game plan doesn't start with the game plan for that battle. Let's say it's a court case. You go to an attorney and says, here's how we're going to tackle it. There is a game plan that's within you before you ever pick up the phone and call an attorney. The game plan within you is, how do I deal with challenges? How do I deal with challenges when they come to my business, to my family, to my marriage, to my home, to my finances? How do I deal with challenges? Okay, so having shared what I shared with you about the extent of my religious upbringing, I didn't read the Bible. My dad was not, nor was my mom, somebody who, some Christians will have, Bible night and daily devotionals, and the family will sit down in the living room and everybody will share what Jesus has done for them. And this goes on, And let's all pray together, and Lord, help Susie with her math test, and help little Billy with his football game. And my family wasn't like that. Like I said, we prayed at dinner. Once in a while my mom would say, Lord, help him, he doesn't feel well. And she'd give a little prayer or something, but not a very religious climate. And yet I felt like, I like Jesus that much. It was like Jesus, who's a nice friend in the house and you liked having him there, but he wasn't up in your face all the time going, do you accept me? Do you accept me? I liked Jesus growing up because he was cool in my household. But as I went across the country to the Bible Belt, my God, it was like, you understand Jesus wants an intimate, deep, passionate relationship with you? I'm like, are you serious? Is he gay? No, brother, that's what I mean. It ain't about the sex. It's about the heart, man. It's about the heart. He wants to reach you and touch your life. I'm like, I know the dude. He ain't as creepy as you're making him out. So, now let me say some provocative things. While my family wasn't overly religious, those ideas of religion certainly were in our life. There were two groups of people in our church. The group that showed up on Sundays and watched the show and listened to an inspirational message. If you want to know what I'm talking about, watch Joel Osteen, because it's the same exact thing. And then within that group is a smaller group, much smaller, that wants to know what day, what time, what hour Jesus is coming back, and they will attend every Bible study, every lecture, every special course. They'll buy every book, every highlighter, everything, because they got to know what's going on in heaven right this minute, and they want the deep truths of the Bible. Those people drove me nuts. I'm like, but these people just absolutely crazy. Well, my family was not that. We didn't go to the deep Bible studies. We weren't, plugged into pre-trib, post-tribulation. We just weren't into it. We just lived our life, loved the Lord, and were happy campers. And that was it. But that's not to say that Christian thinking didn't have its place. So we're talking about how to deal with challenges. You have to have a game plan. And what you think and what you perceive and how you process and the ideology that you associate with your life. And I will tell some of you that are religious and are Christians, I'm going to tell you the truth that you will not hear anywhere else. I'm in Las Vegas working for the devil when I used to work for Jesus. No, I'm just a guy happy in Vegas, here at Las Vegas Broadcasting Company. But I am going to tell you the truth. Jesus said, if somebody hits you, turn the other cheek and let them hit the other cheek. That's the thinking you Christians believe. You think if someone strikes you, you people that go to church, you blessed mamas who give all your husband's money or your money or the money you inherit or however you get your money. I'm not here to judge that. Don't take me wrong here. However you give it all to the church. And do you know women are the highest givers in the church? Highest. And the preachers know it. That's not chauvinistic. I'm telling you a numerical, statistical fact. Okay, so Jesus said, if they hit you on the cheek, turn the other cheek, and let them hit you there too. And so many of you put that over people. It was certainly put over my life. Because I had a sense of righteousness. This is not right. Very black and white with me. I want to work in a zone. I want to work in an environment. Tell me what you want me to do. Tell me how much you're going to pay me, and then leave me alone and let me do it. And then let me come back to you and show you that I did more than what you paid for. But don't bug me. That's the way I work. That's the way I grew up. And people responded to it. In the beginning, you have to deal with the people calling you every 5 minutes because they don't know if you can do it. And that's understandable. But over time, as you build a resume and a portfolio of work and credibility, people begin to say, all right, if you need the time, if you need the space, I'm out of the way. I'll see you when I see you. And you come back and say, look what I did. And you're like a kid, Do you love it? Love it. And I was very black and white. Either it worked. We agreed. This is what we were going to do. But, very not legalistic black and white. Just give me the parameters is all I was. Give me the parameters. Tell me my space in the zone and what we're going to do. And so when I confronted these challenges early in life, I had this thinking of turning the other cheek. And some of you Christians still live under that. And I'm going to tell you a dirty secret about Christian television because I've been around the best of them. Every Christian TV network that you watch today, especially the two biggest, Trinity Broadcasting and Daystar with Marcus and Joni Lamb, are not there by divine impartation of God alone. I'm not here to judge whether God has sprinkled pixie dust on TBN or Daystar or not. That's not my point tonight. But what I'll tell you is Paul Crouch was a shrewd son of a bitch. And that is not a put down. I lived across the field, literally just a block over from Trinity. And I used to ride my bike over there. And I could care less about, the day and hour Jesus is going to come back. Even when I was a fanatical Christian, quote unquote, to some extent, I didn't give a damn about the details. Still don't. I just was like, hey, it's a great thing to be a part of. But Paul Crouch, the guy who started the world's largest religious network, was like a teacher. He would go into these diatribes about the business of Trinity right on the air, and that's what would grab me. I mean, he'd be talking about how they got a satellite hooked up to here and how this was a problem, and then they fought through the FCC for this. And one day, when Jesus comes back, Paul would say, I'm going to say, Jesus, make me the head of the FCC. So I'm not dogging the guy. I learned a lot listening to him from the time I was about 12, throughout my whole life. And he just died a few years ago. And so I look at Paul Crouch. I didn't have any deep personal relationship, met him and was around him many, many, many times, privately and publicly. But I didn't have any profound relationship with him. But I just grew up in that community where Trinity started. And so I was bebopping around and got to see him and be a part of it. And he affected me because he's a great businessman. And that's the point. Some of you Christians think, oh, the hand of God is on TBN, and look at how God has honored it. No, I'm going to tell you something. Paul Crouch could have decided he was going to open a coffee shop in 1972 and say, I'm going to start charging $10 for a cup of coffee, and people will pay for it. And guess what? He would have been Starbucks, and Starbucks would have. He is a genius, the guy. He is a freaking bulldozer of a man. Smart and shrewd and didn't take shit from anybody. Oh, he came out, oh, partners. Your TBN. Oh, God loves you. The man was a son of a bitch. And the reason I tell you this is not to disparage him, because I liked him as a person. Not a fan of Trinity, the network. But I liked Paul. How can you like, I don't know, I just like Paul. I listened to him about TV and learned a lot listening to him through the years. But I'm not a fan of Trinity Broadcasting Network. But here's the deal. Some of you are seduced, and some of you don't even know what the heck I'm talking about, but let me tell some of you that know nothing about Christianity. There are people that are lots of people you wouldn't even know are like under this thinking. And Paul gets on there and says, God brought us through. God brought us through. And you never see the camera in his office where he's going, I don't give a damn. You sue those bastards. You tell them if they don't knock it off, I'm going to take them to court and knock their teeth out. Yeah. You think Paul is turning the other cheek? You think he turned that into a multi-billion-dollar corporation with, he has been offered more money from major media corporations for his network. They have channels, stations in China. You know how hard it is to get into China? Google's not in China. Or Facebook's not in China. Paul Crouch got his Christian network in China. That's how bastard son of a bitch fighting this dude is. Or was. He don't mess around. He can go head to head with the Kremlin, and he has. And some of you Christians say, oh, God had a guy named Paul Crouch who's a freaking son of a bitch. And why do I tell you that? Because if you don't settle in your mind how you're going to deal with challenges, you'll never deal with them. And I went around kind of schizophrenic. The righteous part of me saying, that's not right, I should sue him. And then I'd get beat down and go, but I can't, I'm a Christian. That's how I grew up. I can't fight him, I'm a Christian. I don't want to take people to court, that's not Christian. And guess what? People will trample all over you. Other Christians, if you're a Christian, will trample on you. Because some of them know this dirty secret. The dirty secret that they don't all do what they claim Jesus told them to do, which is turn the other cheek. They're like, yeah, my wife says I'm a bastard. I just look the other way. I'm a good husband. Good for you. But my business partner left and started another company. I'm suing that son of a bitch. A lot of guys are fine if it's relationship oriented, but when it comes to the money and their pride and their ego, hell no. Take them to court. All right. So settle what you believe. Now that's going to bring me to this point of it. Am I saying to sue everybody? I am absolutely not. I am not saying to sue everybody. If you want to know what the definition of evil is, it is litigiousness. People who sue just to sue. People who don't want peace, who don't want resolution, who aren't out after what's fair and righteous, but will use the courts and the legal system to manipulate, to bully, and to beat up on others. That's pure evil. And that I never saw Paul Crouch do. These people I've talked about, whether it's Marcus Lamb, he's not as righteous as Paul was, he's a snake. Marcus Lamb is a snake. Faker than a $3 bill. Kisses up to Dr. Phil and gets Dr. Phil to get on TV and, pat him on the ass in a marketing campaign of Marcus is a snake. And I know him. But even Marcus and even Paul Crouch and these guys that I saw in Christian TV, they're not evil litigators. They're not running around. They'll bully the hell out of you. They'll threaten it if it serves their purpose. And they'll go to court if they are righteous in their cause or believe they're righteous. And I'm talking about people who use the courts knowing full well that there's really nothing there. But they're just vicious. And they're not good human beings. So I am not saying run to the legal system and fight all your battles, that the way to overcome challenges is through court, because I don't believe it. I'm simply saying, worst case scenario, be prepared to fight the good fight when you're dealing with challenges. And let me give you an example. I had a guy who we entered into a deal. Now, I could spin, and last night I talked about some of my accomplishments. I don't want to give a bad picture that I've had a bunch of challenges, but tonight's show is about challenges, and so in this context, I'm not speaking so much about accomplishments as much as I am what I've learned through the challenges I've faced. So we entered into an agreement to do an event. All right? And I was doing my part, and he was putting up some money. And some things came together, and we finally decided we're not going to do it, and we wanted to, actually, and we had three documents from the party that was kind of the yes or no on the thing, saying we were going to do it, and when it came down to signing the first draft of the contract, well, yeah, okay, this is the contract I gave you, but I want this too. The guy was like, I want, and I'd say, he'd beat me down, and I said, okay, and then he'd come back with the draft with that update, and then he came back with a third one. After the second one, I said, okay, let's sign it and get it done. Well, I want this too. And I said no. And then I was beat down. I'm like, the clock's ticking. We got to get this deal done. And I said yes. And this went on. And finally it was like, this is not happening. And lots of money had been spent at that time. Not lots, but, money. And money's money. So me and this partner came together, and I was happy because he said, well, I need you to do some stuff for me. And he said, why don't we do this? Give me this much back and do this work for me. And he was very nice. I mean, very nice. I was like, wow, that's a miracle. Again, drawing from my past. This was a non-Christian business dealing just a few years ago. And I really respected this guy. I mean, having told you some of the stories I've told you, it kind of got me right here, a little verklempt. Seriously. I mean, it was like one of the most peaceful, kind resolutions to what could have turned into a disagreement, and it didn't. And everything was copacetic. And I kept keeping my end of the bargain. I kept giving him what he asked for. And then the real challenge came. A litigious snake that I am not legally allowed to mention by name, or I would, came after me trying to just be vicious. But what happened was, I'm not here to talk about that. I'll talk about that maybe another night. What happened was, this guy, the guy I had this arrangement with, got frightened when he found out what the other guy was doing. I mean, he got spooked. And he flipped from a nice guy to just what I call gossipy old lady. And you know why people do that? People do that because they don't want to be wrong. And they want to be in the in crowd. And if everything's going good in your life, oh, you're going to have lots of friends. But if somebody challenges you and you have the wrong kind of friend, like the guy I'm telling you about, he's going to be like, whoa, man, David's getting ready to go through some crap. And he'll run like a coward. And this guy came back and flipped. And he started lying. I mean, this was a year later, more than a year later. And he started getting vicious in his lies. Just not even vicious, stupid. Flat out falsehoods. Things that were not true. And I decided that I don't believe in turning the other cheek anymore. And I said, I'm not taking this. I'm fighting back. And I will not sit down. And I got my Paul Crouch on. And I should have many years ago. Lessons from behind the scenes tonight. And I said, I'm getting my Paul Crouch on. And I went on the attack. I said, if this bastard wants to play with me, I'll show him what playing is, because I'm not taking this lying down. I would never, ever do that to somebody, ever. To be spiteful, vengeful, or to express some sort of hatred or prejudice. I would never. But when a fucker comes at me fighting like that, you better damn well bet I fought back. And I mean, I fought hard. So what'd I do? Well, so this guy takes me to small claims court based on a lie and half the truth. I said, fine, I'll go to small claims court. I'd already given him way over half the money. Half the money. And I'd done all this other work for him, and we were supposed to settle up how much of that was going to be work for trade. And this were things, I didn't go to him and say, hey, I'm willing to do some work if you'll forgive the debt. He came to me and said, this is what I'd like to do. That was his suggestion, not mine. So we're talking about how to deal with challenges tonight, how to survive them. So I went to small claims court as a defendant. And the small claims court gets up and they give this announcement and say, are any of you willing to go to arbitration? And so I didn't raise my hand at all. But this guy didn't even show up. He sent one of his young family members. The kid was nice, so I don't want to be rude and say whether it was who it was. The kid was nice. So this kid comes up to me, and I'm sitting there, not looking too happy. And the kid walks up to me and he says, are you willing to go to arbitration? Because we are. And I said, hell no. You think I want to negotiate with that slimy, lying, no good for nothing piece of shit that you're representing here? I do not. And I said no. And then they broke to work out for the people who did want to go to arbitration. They broke, and those people went out into the hallway. So I took a break, and I went out to go to the bathroom. And the kid's standing there with one of the arbitrators, and he says, yeah, we want to arbitrate, but he's not willing to. And the arbitrator reaches for my arm just before I'm going to the bathroom. I'm right outside the courtroom door. And he says, are you not? He said, this is unusual. He said, most of the time, it's the plaintiff who's not willing to have arbitration, not the defendant. I said, yeah, because you don't know this guy. I said, he's crooked and a liar. And he thinks he's going to beat me up with a little small claims bully tactic. He can kiss my royal ass. Now, that is far different than the kid who got beat up when I was 16, 17 years old. A far different attitude, because I have fought many, many a mile. And I finally came to the place in my life where I said, no more. I have worked too hard to let people beat me up with their bullshit. And some of you need that fight and resolve. I'm not talking about being a bully. I'm not talking about being overly aggressive. I'm not talking about being a negative, vindictive, vengeful person. I'm talking about a fine line where you stand your ground when you have a righteous cause. Not being vicious. Not looking to hurt people. Not looking to tear people down. But you stand up straight, at attention, and say, no more. And I mean it. And that's what I said to the arbitrator. So I went off and went to the bathroom, and as I'm walking away, I hear the arbitrator say, he's not interested. And I certainly wasn't. But once I got a few things off my mind, or bladder as it were, I walked back, and the arbitrator reached out to me a third time now. The kid first, then the arbitrator, and now as I'm going back in, and he says, here's the thing. And so he starts giving me his pitch. And I said, okay, I'll hear them out. And so we went into the arbitration room. I made no commitment. I said, okay. And then I said, well, if you guys want to handle it this way, I would be willing to do this, this, and this, under the provision that he agrees to quit talking this nonsense, or I'm seriously going to fight back. And he goes to the kid, I think you have a call to make. So he picks up the phone to call the guy who he's representing. You don't have to be an attorney in small claims court, so you can send your pool cleaner to represent you in small claims court if you want to. Like I said, this kid was nice, so I don't want to say anything disparaging or sound mean, because the kid was nice. He's probably 19, 20 years old. And but the person he was representing, a family member, is a low-life piece of garbage, period. Just a piece of garbage. A weak person with no fortitude, no character to stand up and stand with you when you're going through a very difficult time. And so we came to an agreement. I talked to this weak guy that I'm telling you about on the phone, and we agreed. And so the agreement was that I would pay 50% of what he was suing for, which was 50% of the balance. Of course, he owed me for some production stuff. But now here's where my Christian upbringing comes into play. I'm the kind of person that if somebody's nice to me, do unto others as you would have them do unto you, I try to do that. Am I successful at doing unto others as you would have them do unto me? I try. Am I always successful? No. I don't go wipe other people's butt. I tend to wipe my own. I don't always do unto others as I'd want them to do unto me. Now, understand what I'm saying. But what I do always try to do is when people show me a kindness, I try to reciprocate and show a kindness back. If I fail at doing unto others as I would have them do unto me, which I try to do, but I'll fail at it sometimes. I'm not perfect. Then at least when people are nice unto you, you go the extra mile to try to be nice to them. That is my way. I'm a people pleaser at my core. And when people are nice to me, I mean, it's just like, to kind of paint a picture, I fall in love. Not literally. I gush and want to do good and want to show kindness back. And this guy, as I told you early on, had shown me such kindness that my mindset was, not only am I going to do the work for him, but the work that he's agreeing to take off this money, I'm going to do for free and give him all the money back because he's been so nice. But he freaked out and thought my ship was going down and decided to be an asshole. And so now he's in court and agrees to a 50% settlement of the 100% he was going to get. And guess what? He got his 50%. Paid off. Done. Finny. Out of my life. Good riddance. So that's why I say don't be litigious, vindictive. Why? Because That stupidity cost him, it's a lot of money to me. I wouldn't want to give up the 50% he gave up to anybody. I wouldn't. He could add 100% by just being nice instead of being what I call old woman gossip. And it cost him some money. That's what stupidity will cost you if you take what I'm saying to the wrong extreme and become litigious and vicious and vengeful. You lose. Evil never wins. I don't care what people say. It never wins. But that doesn't mean you don't stand your ground. And it doesn't mean that you don't fight the good fight. The good fight. I mean, you fight. And that's what I did. And I've done it more and more the older I've gotten. That people-pleasing part of me finally figured out where to draw the lines. Because there's some people, I told you, if somebody's kind to me, listen, if you're a kind person, there ain't anybody you want to be with more than me. And I mean it. You show me kindness and I am so grateful and running around I'm grateful. If someone's kind to me, I'm grateful. If someone is shitty to me, I've learned. Why? Because if you take that goodness, whatever it is, whatever your good strengths are, mine happens to be when people are kind to me, I want to please, I want to give right back, I want to thank them, I want to go the extra mile. But if you let that kind of thinking transfer over to people who are treating you bad, that's what some abused women do. They become, codependency. They can't live without someone telling them that they're no good for nothing. They're not at peace unless the husband's a drunk, coming home and knocking the crap out of them every night. And there are people who live that way. And same in business. The same in your business. You can get to a place where you're just accustomed to people beating up on you. And that's not healthy. And we're not talking about tone and how you deal with things, because that's a different issue. We're talking about your heart attitude, how you deal with stuff. And if you let people lie about you, cheat, steal, gang up, because listen, business is business, and there's strategy to it. It's more of a war of survival than it is anything else. There are competitors trying to take your customers. There's corporations who want to shut you down. There's politicians who will either exploit you for their gain or make you a villain for their gain. I mean, these forces are real in the world. I'm not saying to live in a hyper state of paranoia, but awareness is not paranoia. Be aware, but not paranoid. So, do not be a vicious person or a vindictive person, but stand your ground and fight. And so that's my rule for law. And when do I go to court? I go to court when I've done everything that I can do because I know me. I trust me. My nature is to be a peacemaker. But if that peacemaking has me sitting before a CFO, a chief financial officer, who says, whatever happened to, the $3,000 that company owed us? Oh, I felt bad for him. I let it go. Once or twice, maybe. But if he looks back over the course of a year, 2, 3 years and says, Jesus, David, you fucking forgive all these debts and that's not right. Your contract's worth nothing because you tell people they have to pay, and then if they don't, you just let it go. That's not kindness, that's bad business. Now that doesn't mean you then run to court, but it does mean you pick up the phone and say, look, I'm sorry to say this, but we got to get this solved. I don't want to be mean, and that's my problem. I don't want to be the bad guy. I don't ever want to call somebody up and say, hey, this has to be this way. But sometimes you have to, knowing who you are. Your nature is to work with them. Okay, I hear what you're saying, but because there are people that'll say, well, the roof's caving in, and and you say, okay, well then, well, check with me in a month. And you say, oh, a month. All right, I'll check with you in a month. You call them back. Well, it's just, and I don't know, maybe I don't think I should be doing this now. Well, I'm sorry, but you signed a contract, and we've already started. You got to pay. I worked with you a month. So there's lines, boundaries you set up, and you have to decide those for yourself. I'm telling you mine. You have to decide your own. You have to decide how you process and deal with challenges, because our topic tonight is surviving challenges to your enterprise, because they will come. Now, it's not only the courts that you have to deal with in terms of, am I going to sue people? Am I going to get a collection agency? I'm giving you kind of a philosophical, psychological look at this versus the options you have. I'll tell you some of the options many of you probably already know. You can, if you're invoicing people, you can work with companies that factor. And a factoring company basically buys your invoice or will give you credit on your invoices depending on the company. So let's say I go out and I sell a $1,000 contract, okay? They will buy that at a very high interest rate. Most factoring companies are very expensive. I don't recommend it. I am pitched by these people all the time. Why? You walk in with a piece of paper, no check, no nothing, and it says, AAA owes me over the next 90 days $1,000. Okay? They'll take that invoice and they'll give you $800 or $700, and some of them, there are people out there giving away crazy money to factoring companies. But you get the money now, and then they collect it from them, and they make a few $100 on your $1,000. That's factoring. So when you work your business in that kind of way, you don't have much of a problem, because they'll take the hit and they'll take the loss. Now, if you keep getting contracts that are not paying, they're going to come back to you and say, let me read your contract. There's no wonder no one's paying, This is a bad contract. So you've got options, but if you're extending credit, and even if you're not, if you're just extending a service or a product or have an open door, you're open to litigious people. People are going to sue you. And I wish we didn't live in that world. I think sometimes, many times, lawsuits are about misunderstandings or hurt feelings. And that's why the court set up the arbitration process, which I think is brilliant. I don't hold it against people because they get a little pissed off. I've called so-and-so 15 times, and we're not getting it, because people argue, and when you're in a state of defending yourself, you tend not to hear one another. And so one or the other party says, let's go sue this bastard, and suddenly you're hit with a lawsuit. Well, the courts know the emotion, and so most states have, and jurisdictions will have arbitration, and you should put an arbitration clause in all your contracts. I'm not giving legal advice, so I'm just kind of telling you, my thinking. All right, I'm just sharing my experience. And I believe in arbitration clauses because probably in a good 80+% of the time, most things that escalate to a serious lawsuit can be resolved through arbitration, just because people are tense and emotional, etc. And at the end of the day, most people are not evil. Most people will say, when you say, look, you did this, you did that, you know it, but I did this and I understand I did that. And that's what arbitration is, when everybody kind of calms down and says, all right, we've had a disagreement, let's sort it out and come to a resolve. And that's a righteous path for resolution to conflict in your business is arbitration. So my recommendation, or what I'll say it this way because I'm not an attorney, what I would recommend is that you put an arbitration clause in your contracts as you're developing your enterprise or your business. I'd write arbitration clauses with my kids. Look, if you and I can't sort this out, we're going to grandma's. So you have arbitration. And the next one is full-blown, a court case, not arbitration. And that can get very expensive very fast. So I am not a litigious person. Now, the wrap-up to tonight's program is something I touched on a little bit last night, is your brand. Okay, everybody has a brand nowadays. It wasn't this way. Once upon a time, a brand meant Disney, Coca-Cola, AT&T, JCPenney's. You know, that was branding back in the day. Now everybody's got a brand. Your friends who post on Facebook have a brand. What's their brand? Their name. Why do I say that? Well, because you got a lot of good people on Facebook who are real. Hey, I'm spending time with my mom and dad, and it's so good to see them again, and we're just having, and those are great people. Then you got people who are like, I have a brand. Let me share what I did today. I'm not putting them down. I'm just saying 80% of us these days have a brand, something we're trying to protect and get out there in some fashion, whether it's a business product or ourself. By the way, I was going to put up on the screen tonight, oh man, I didn't load it. Can you believe that? A picture that said, I will work for likes. I need you to like and I need you to subscribe. Speaking of brand. So protecting your brand. Well, sometimes it's not, sometimes it is not a court case. Sometimes it is not arbitration. Sometimes it's just protecting your brand. It's the buzz, the press you're getting, and press is not just formalized to the media or a newspaper or something of that sort. Press can also be the buzz about you in a circle of friends or in your little stratosphere of life. And more, we live in a world where people are concerned about their brand, be it a personal thing, an image they're trying to uphold. And I'm not here to debate whether that's good or bad. It's just a fact, is all I'm saying. So many people have some enterprise, whether it's a YouTube channel or some sort of business enterprise, and they're trying to protect that brand. And you have to protect your brand. And I'm only speaking in business. Those of you that do it personally and see yourself as, Kardashian light, have at it. I'm talking to people that are trying to formalize their businesses and, accomplish. We're doing Las Vegas Broadcasting Company. That's what's running up behind me. But I'm talking to those of you that you've got to protect your brand. And I will close on this example. We have had a lady who signed a contract with us. Now, let me tell you, I have dealt with thousands of clients throughout my career. And I've counted it up, and I have had not even a fraction of a percent of issues in my life. When you add up everybody I've received money from or signed a contract from, I have had a fraction of a percent of issues. I've been to court 3 or 4 times in my entire career, and I've been doing this over 30 years. And I've only been to one serious case, a minor case, and 2 small claims cases. One I settled, and one I won. This one I wasn't there for, so I lost on that one. It wasn't a big deal. It was a small. Then the biggest one I settled. So that's 4 in my entire life, out of thousands of contracts and thousands of clients. That's a pretty good ratio. But that's legal. Now you've got your brand. And so we entered into a contract with this woman, and I'm truthful. And I told this person, we're going through a challenge. And by the way, I didn't sell her. I've never met her in person ever. But the point being that, we communicated some problems we were having. And she just said, I just want a refund. Well, we'd already done work for her. And she started lying. She told people that we took money and never showed up. She said this. Well, here's the great thing about our business. We're in the video and television business. You understand where I'm going with this? This woman says she says we never showed up. I have video about 20 feet from me of us talking to her, shooting her store on camera, blatantly a lie. I mean, this is not a matter of, well, they weren't nice to me, I didn't like what they did, because we never get that. We don't get people saying they don't like what we did. This was a blatant, evil lie meant to bully me so that she didn't have to pay. And I looked her up and found out and had a little check on her, and that's how she does things. That's the way this woman is. She bullies people. Now, how does it affect us legally? Well, it hasn't, but it's a branding issue, and I won't settle for it. So I reached out to her personally, and she bullied me. And I finally ended the call with, "You're a liar. You're flat out lying. You understand that there's a difference of saying you don't like something, but to say we didn't do anything that you never saw us again. We took your money and you never saw us again." That's crazy. I have video to prove otherwise. That's why I love TV. I have video of everything I've done, everything. And I'm proud of it. You know, hey, if she wants to say she's unhappy or something, fine. I'd say, oh, you know, she whatever. I wouldn't like it because I work hard again to please people. Okay, so what do? Well, she didn't respond to me, so our attorney sent her a letter, nice and friendly, and said, hey, you know, we're not hostile. We just would like to work this out and get this behind us. And same thing. So now what? We're suing her. Not a little bit, a lot. To be vicious? No. No. What we're suing her for is all based on documented fact, proof, and it's still not my choice. But once I make a decision on how I'm going to deal with something, I follow through on it. I have for months suffered because of viciousness of a liar. That's totally provable. It's not an opinion thing. And again, if she had uttered opinions that were not what I wanted, what would I say? Well, that's what she thinks. Oh, well, that sucks. Somebody's saying crappy stuff. That's not what it is. It's viciousness and lies, completely disprovable. Which when you do that, folks, it makes you susceptible to legitimate. You can't run around suing people for opinion. And some people think, oh, they're disparaging me. Hey, that's part of being anything public. People are going to disparage. You got to get a, thick skin. But lying is not permissible under the law because you're painting a false picture. And the picture she painted is so defamatory and so egregious and so biased and untrue. It's not even, it's blatantly a lie. She tried to create a picture that would inflame passions, but not based on truth. That makes her legally susceptible. And she's got a lot of exposure. So tonight is about facing challenges. So what do you do when it's all over? When everything's said and done? You heal and you take care of yourself. You heal. Because if you ever lie to yourself and say this stuff doesn't affect you, then you're creating a callus on your heart. Remember I said guitar players have calluses on their fingers, and that's a good thing. It's a healthy thing. Because they can play, and now their fingers aren't bleeding all the time when they're pulling on those steel strings. But you don't want a callus to wrap around your heart, to your sensitivity. You don't want to be the kind of person that can't ever be moved to tears from a great movie, or your kid says something beautiful to you and it doesn't reach you. Yeah, I know. And people that have been that way, the stereotypical Ebenezer Scrooge types, are because they had to have callus in some aspect of their life, but never stopped the callousing process at their heart. And so the callus began to wrap around their heart. You've got to get a thick skin to deal with business challenges. But you also have to protect that thick skin doesn't wrap around your heart and prevent you from feeling and experiencing emotion and life and depth and range. So when you come through battles and have survived them, you have to heal. And one way is to deal in truth. I'm hurt by this. I didn't want for this to happen. I was trying to this, or I wanted that, and I don't understand. And allow yourself the time and the space to deal with the hurts, whether it was a challenge to your brand because friends and family lied about you on Facebook, or a challenge to your company because you had a righteous mistake and people completely pounced on you. Those things hurt. I don't care if you're running a Las Vegas television network with girls' booties bouncing around like behind me right now. Those things hurt. And understandably so. So when you survive them, allow yourself to heal. And you start by being truthful with yourself. Instead of saying, I'm fine. No, it didn't affect me. No, it affected you. And if you don't deal with it, it'll pop up somewhere. And you'll be with a guy who's probably the greatest guy in the world who wants to help you. And you'll go, you're just one of them. He's like, huh? I don't even know what you're talking about. So you got to deal with the hurts. And that's not, sappy stuff. It's just truth, folks. It's just the truth. Deal with it. And once you have dealt with the truth, then you can simmer down and start healing. And the healing process is different for all of us. I have a very healthy healing process. When I'm going through healing, I, put on an old bathing suit, an old tank top, and I go buy 3 dozen Krispy Kreme donuts, and I sit in my bedroom with the lights off, and I eat donuts. No, that's not my healing process. Maybe it's a trip. Maybe it's a drive walk on the beach. Maybe it's just a reprieve, a Facebook vacation, or whatever it may be. You've got to rejuvenate your spirit, man, and your being and your essence, and heal so that you can confront the next challenge. Even the greatest football players get tired and they send in a replacement so that the guy can rest. And some of you don't do that. You don't rest. You don't give yourself that break, that reprieve. And healing won't come if you are constantly walking from battle to battle and from battlefield to battlefield. Now, sometimes you can't help because you're in a war against your will. And the battles keep coming. They keep fighting at you. And you got to fight, As much as there are probably many soldiers on D-Day who wish they could have turned back around and walked back into the boat and say, hell no, I'm not doing this. They were in it. And they had to come ashore and fight for their life. And sometimes that's life. You have no choice. You got to fight for your life. But when you find that reprieve, take it. Run to it. Embrace it. And heal. So you can survive any challenge, and challenges will come. Decide what you believe. Decide what kind of person you want to be. Am I going to be a litigious, suing son of a gun? Or am I going to be the kind of person that is only after righteousness? And even then, I'm willing to show grace and mercy. Because I truly believe what you get back. I believe that. I believe if you show kindness, you'll receive kindness. Consistently, is it a law? Is it ingrained in the universe? No. Otherwise, you wouldn't have unrighteousness. You wouldn't have people. All you'd have to do is be nice to everybody, and all you'd ever get back is niceness. The pain comes from the fact that you're nice to people, and out of the blue pops up a son of a bitch, and you're like, what the hell? And one lone voice can absolutely turn the tide and start taking people that are even positive for you, and you're like, what is going on? And that can be devastating to you as a person. So you have to decide how you're going to confront challenges. Do you turn the other cheek and literally let people take from you year after year, lie about you, cheat you, rob from you, demean your self-worth and hard work? Or do you stand your ground and say, this is where I stand and I'm not budging? And if you want to screw with me, you are in for the hell of the ride of your life. And mean it. Mean it, and mean it. But never lose your soul. I hope you've enjoyed the program. We'll see you back here Tuesday night with a live stream from behind the scenes. Everything you need to know about us is at LasVegasBroadcastingCompany.com or LVBroadcasting.com. Please subscribe to our channel. We're going to give, as you see, a little more attention to YouTube. Watch our network on Roku, smart TVs. Find out where you can watch it, what device you can watch it on, what TV, at our website, lvbroadcasting.com. And what else do I need to follow up with? The network's totally different than this. This is our stream, and that's the network playing behind us. My name is David Hare. Thanks for watching Behind the Scenes at Las Vegas Broadcasting Company. I'll see you soon.